Hey everyone, it's Ryan from No Credentials Required to talk to you about one of our newest partners at BellyUpSports, SeatGeek. Yeah, live sports is great on television, but the feeling of being at the arena is a priceless experience. That's why our friends at SeatGeek are there to help you find the best tickets at the best prices. Not only can you get tickets to sporting events, but you can also get tickets to concerts, comedy shows, musicals, and more. Search for your desired event now at SeatGeek.com, enter promo code BellyUpSports at checkout, and you save $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek. Life's an event. We have the tickets.
Manchester City, man. So if you guys don't know what's going on with Manchester City, they're currently in a hearing that has been going on for quite some time now, and it is under the charges of 115 and possibly even 130 charges of financial fair play violations. And these, and you're like, oh my God, this is all happening in one offseason? No, this is all within a span of 2009. So from 2009 till now, they have found from 115 to 130 possible violations of financial fair play. And obviously, if you know about Manchester City, got invested by an oil sheik, then they started going. They started buying all the best players that they can, any big name that they could. They went and bought them in hopes of making Manchester City one of the best teams in the English Premier League. And some of the names you could think of is Robinho, Carlos Tevez, you good, buddy? All right. Sorry about that. They've always went after a big player, right? They've always went after. We're not afraid to spend to get players into Manchester City, and then when they went after Mancini, they went after was it Pellegrino? They've gone after big name managers as well, and then when they finally did it, they went after for the biggest one of them all, and that's Pep Guardiola. And like I said, they still went after and gone after the best players in the world, whenever possible. Obviously they went after and spent hundreds of euros to go get Jack Grealish. They went after Erling Haaland. And they still do it to this day. They still go after some of the best players in the world. Probably still with some tag now. They also invest in future promising prospects as well. Look at Doku, for instance. But the one thing that everybody makes fun of Manchester City is that this team was bought, right? This was a team that was bought and, became relevant because of the fact that they were bought. They didn't really have much of a history before. And, you have this tycoon comes in, throws his money out there, and now makes Manchester City one of the most annoying, obnoxious clubs in the history of sport. And I know how that feels because I'm a Madrista. Except our wealth comes from years and years, not just a short stint of time. And obviously, if you ask like a real Man City fan, and I'm saying a real Man City fan, the ones that had can remember DeMarcus Beasley playing for Manchester City, the guys that remember the other Haaland, Erling Haaland's father playing for Manchester City, and even Claudio Reyna. Like those guys that were fans around that time period, they're not going to apologize for what the team has now. And obviously now you have like the bandwagon fans. Everybody's now hopping on Manchester City because of all the names and all that, which is perfectly fine. I will never tell somebody how to be a fan. I think it's ridiculous for anyone trying to tell someone how to be a fan. I'm a Madrista, and I didn't. It's not like, I've never been to Spain. I've never been to Madrid, but I still have a passion for that club. I still love that club. So once again, I'm not gonna ever speak on people. Oh, you never been to Manchester City? None of that. Manchester City was a shit club before the billionaires came in. Like that's I'm never gonna tell someone to not be a fan of a team. Like that's ridiculous. But I think what many people want is like just admit that you wouldn't have all this success if it wasn't for this chic. And that's really all that people want for Man City fans to admit. Like you're going through your team's history now. Like your team's history is now. Now in a few years down the road, who's to say if they keep it afloat or they don't, whatever. But this is where you get your team's history. You got the quadruple, the team that got over 100 points. I believe they had 100 points when like things like that. And be never once again, never apologize for winning. Never feel bad that your team is having success. Never do that. And I don't want anybody to feel bad for having a team that's winning titles. But let's be honest, like you're in the glory years. Like, and I know that the first team and I know as I'm an Arsenal supporter, and I know that they always try to bash Arsenal, and I mean they try to bash the Invincibles and all that, which is like okay, but guess what? That happened. Arsenal win undefeated. Arsenal is still deemed a big club, like regardless of the lack of success that has come over in the recent years, they're still considered a big club. Man City is a big club now. And it's okay that they're a big club. And it's okay to also admit, like, especially to the fans that became Manchester City fans. Like, be honest, you weren't a fan of Manchester City till, they got their money. And so that's what I'm at. And obviously, I've said it plenty of times. I think financial fair play is a joke because it doesn't get enforced. It isn't until recently people are starting to bring up financial fair play, and you're seeing some teams trying to sell players out so they can be within the confines of what financial fair play is supposed to be, and that's fine too. And I mean, if it's actually getting the attention of people now, like we can't just buy whoever the hell we want now. Now we got to make sure we meet the parameters of financial fair play, which is fine as well, and I'm totally cool with that. And yes, I've said it plenty of times. Real Madrid should probably be investigated. PSG should definitely be investigated. Chelsea, like any big club that goes after these huge marquee signings, should be getting looked into for financial fair play. There's no hiding it. Like the purpose of financial fair play is for it to not be too ridiculous, like for one team to be overpowered. Like that's the whole point. It's so that we don't have leagues that are like the Bundesliga that has been dominated by Bayern Munich for so many years. Like to make it fair to some extent that, they just can't go by everybody. Like that, and I think that's important. That's important for leagues to grow, for for fans who want to become fans of a league. Like you're not gonna get many people that are gonna say that they're a RB Leipzig fan because it's like the Bundesliga in some sense could probably be argued as an unwatchable league because of the fact that Bayern Munich always wins it. I mean, last year we got to see Bayer Leverkusen, which people were watching because Bayer Leverkusen was going on the run that they were going. So yeah, like it does welcome more fans when the league is somewhat fair. Like when there is parity, it does make things very much watchable. And I even say this season's Premier League, it's been very much watchable because part of you kind of thinks maybe Manchester City might not win it this year, you know? And same thing with La Liga. Like, isn't yeah, it's yes, is it between Atletico Madrid, Barcelona, and Real Madrid? Yes. But you look at you're like, maybe it is in Real Madrid's year. Maybe it is in Barcelona's year. Maybe it is in Atletico Madrid's year. That's what happens. Serie A is getting more competitive. So like financial fair play has its purpose, but I just need it to be enforced. I still consider it a joke until actions are being very much taken. And like I said, I know Juventus was getting hit for financial fair play. As a matter of fact, they took like a 15-point deduction, and which cost them a Champions League appearance. And then they got somewhat within the parameters of financial fair. Sorry, back to the parameters of financial fair play, and now look, you know they're back in the Champions League. But But clearly, what happened to Juventus wasn't enough because teams still do it, and I think that's why I'm very much intrigued of what's going on with Manchester City because of the fact that if Manchester City one, a lot of people are Manchester City fans now because they're the hot team. People do that. I know, and I get it. Um, they're the hot team. If if they decide to punish Manchester City for financial fair play and be valid, the reasons have to be valid in some sense. That could be enough of a statement for clubs to be like, okay, let's get our paperwork in order. Let's make sure the math is mathing here, you know? And I have said that Man City, there's some BS. And the BS is that obviously uh the Man City group, right? You know, the prime example is Savio. Savio, who was in Girona. I think he went to Strasbourg and was sold from Strasbourg for like 30 million. I don't know the number exact, but it was a very low number compared to what his actual market value was listed on Transfer Market. And obviously Transfer Market isn't the end all be all, but it's pretty accurate to some extent. And you know, and we called it. We said it. Yeah, Savio's probably gonna end up in Manchester City. So even though they lost Julian Alvarez, they get a Savio, and now they're fine. And so and people don't like the Man City group for those reasons, those exact reasons, because they don't like that this is how they're able to acquire players now, because they have all these teams under their umbrella and just make a little swift little signing that doesn't cost them too much. And that's the part where I have a problem. But to be honest, man, this hearing and honestly, this case could very much drag out and could drag it on to next year and even further. And I think that that is a huge red flag because I don't want this case to go and drag out. Like if this is gonna be a top, like if this gets brought up every year for insert name FC, like where we have to like periodically give you guys some sort of update to what this hearing's on, like this needs to be decided fairly soon. Like in a decision needs to be made whether they want to punish Manchester City depending on how bad, how egregious these 115 to possibly 130 charges. Like if it's really bad, and I mean obviously probably could be, because I mean the worst case scenario, we're talking about expulsion from the top flight, potentially even the football league. Like they can't even go into League Two. Essentially, is where people think like worst case, like DEF CON 5. We're talking about here, like how potentially. I don't think it's gonna get to that extreme. Maybe a competition ban, maybe ban from Champions League for a few years, maybe some transfer bans, something of some sort of like that. Um, I like for me, it would be transfer bans. It would be um maybe banning them from the Champions League. You know, like things like that, where it's harsh but firm, harsh but fair. Um, that it's not gonna because once again, Manchester City brings a lot of money to the Premier League, especially right now. Like I said, once again, they're the hot team. Like enough to get the point across, but at the same time, it's not going to be very much detrimental to Manchester City, if that makes any sense. And also like if they do like the point deductions for like every year that they were very much egregious on the financial fair play stuff, like and somehow team trophies get like like as an Arsenal supporter, if somehow they found out that last year they were very much in violation and they deducted points for it to be enough for Arsenal to be the Premier League champions, like I don't want to say that I wouldn't accept it because obviously it's a Premier League title, but like at that point it just becomes like a technicality and I kind of don't care for it at that point. Like like I want them to win, like I want them to beat out Man City for it. Like I don't want it to be, oh, we just deducted, 12 points off of Manchester City. Congratulations, you're now the 2023-2024 Premier League champion. It just seems it just seems unearned to me. And that's just me. I'm sure there's a lot of Arsenal fans that be like, hell yeah, give me back the trophy. But I'm just not one of those guys. That's just me. Aside from that though, and I like I said, I need the punishment to be harsh but fair. Harsh but fair and done right away. Like this cannot be dragged out. Because if anything, the punishment was waiting to find out what your punishment was going to be, which is basically the 2000s Miami Hurricanes. If you guys don't know, the University of Miami got hit with a bunch of violations for the NCAA, the National College Association, whatever they're called. But they were doing a lot of violations involving paying players, which in college sports you're not supposed to pay players. Now they do because they have NIL. But back then you couldn't give players money. So they had this whole investigation of trying to figure out whether or not they were going to give the University of Miami the death penalty, which meant uh, basically the destruction of the football program. Banned from bowls, banned from you only had a certain number of scholarships. But I mean, the death penalty is literally just stripping away the football program, and that's what they were trying to do with the University of Miami. It got so bad to where the point where even the NCAA was doing some dirty stuff as well they found out during their investigation of the University of Miami. So because of that, they ended the investigation and Miami was came out free from all that. But it was just dragged out for years and years. This football team trying to figure out if they're even going to have a team, but they're still going out and recruiting. They're still practicing, not knowing what their fate was going to be. And that's what I don't want to happen to Manchester City. I don't want them year after year after year trying to figure out, are we going to be in the Premier League this year? Are we going to be in the Champions League this year? I don't want that for them because it's going to be hard to, one, sell fans. Fans are going to be irritated as well, but it's going to be hard to go get after players because it's like, well, I don't want to play there and they're not going to be in the Champions League. Like, oh, well, they're I can't go to Manchester City, things, blah, 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 all those things because they don't know what's going to happen to them. You don't know if they're going to be in the Premier League or are they going to sit down to the championship or are they going to even be in some sort of football league match. Maybe they have to go all the way down to the bot, you might not even see them on FIFA kind of thing. Um, and so that's where the concern comes from. So to kind of wrap this up, here's a quote from former Premier League CEO Witness, and this is what he believes. I think the Premier League definitely wants to get this over with and learn better lessons on how to regulate the game. Man City can't keep fighting these battles PR wise and from a global public image point of view. They know they've got this. They got to put this to the bed. Everyone loves football. They've been playing, but there is a cloud looming over them. It's in everyone's interest to get this solved. It's gone on for so long. But if there's a statement, there has to be a clear reason. It could be that both sides have got very good cases. I hope common sense will prevail. I think Man City would settle and take a penalty. I'd love to be a fly on the wall in these hearings. Nevertheless, it's all going to become out in the wash, and hopefully it won't drag for years, as it may well do. Just, just get a punishment out at this point. I think, and it has to be a justifiable punishment, especially for the fans that don't like Manchester City. Because let's be honest, man, not only are you worried about acquiring players, but you have to keep a coach, Pep Guardiola, who I think can honestly be said has done everything that he needs to with Manchester City. Yeah, he has nothing left to prove for Manchester City, but if you're trying to keep him, if you're not in the Champions League or if you're not going to be in the Premier League, what's his incentive to stay? Um, and I mean, there's a lot of eyes on him right now. Everyone, as a matter of fact, England wants Pep Guardiola to become the next manager of the English national team. So they're tracking this hearing to see what's going to happen for Pep, because Pep could very much be the next English manager. So, like I said, for the sake of Man City, for the sake of the fans of the Premier League, for the sake of fans of football, this hearing needs to be finished as soon as possible. Get a punishment out, and a punishment that's, once again, harsh but fair. Fair enough to get the teams to understand that this is not going to be tolerated anymore, and that if you're gonna acquire players, it's got to meet those requirements of financial fair play. That's all I gotta say, man. That's all I gotta say. Let's just get this over with, man. That's all I want.